And they, go ahead, tell me the big. Okay. 7. It'll be 10 in a minute, okay. Okay, so we're gonna call this meeting to order, our special meeting, Monday, October 28th at 6:05, even though my watch says 5:05, I know it is 6:05 p.m. And, we're here tonight to appoint a new town council member, and it will be either Cameron Spindler or Valerie Wins, depending on the results of our interview and our vote. So I want to say something before this gets started, and this is mainly, I think, for the benefit of the people that are online, since there's so few people that are actually here in the room. As long as I've lived here, this is now the 4th time that we have had somebody step down from town council and have to fill the seat. This is 4th time just since I've lived here, and I know it happened before that. In the past, even while I had lived here, when there was the empty seat, people were asked to put their name in. People put their name in, and then what has happened up until now, because this new code that we have showing on the window, the screen up here, that talks about the vote and the flipping of the coin and all this, all of that was put in state code last year in 2023, so it's all new. And people have always put their name in, and what happened in the past multiple times is a seat came open on town council. People submitted their name. People who submitted their names quite often were people who had run for office. They've been in the past election. And then the person who ends up getting appointed to the seat was not one of the people who had run for office, but was a completely different person who never even put their name in to run. And I know from stuff I've heard in the past what bad feelings that caused in town whenever that happened. And so this time, I'm really happy to see both our candidates were in the last election, so I'm like, very good. So it doesn't matter who comes out the victor in this, or the winner in this thing, it's someone who had run for office in the last election, so I'm happy to see that. I just wanted to point that out. Is it still 7 or is there more now? 9, okay. I've asked her how many people are watching on there. Okay. So, all right, so we will get right to it, and we will get to the interviews. Before I start this, is there any opening remarks that any of you three wanted to say, anything at all? No, Misty? Paul?
Not at this time.
And
So in terms of interviewing with our questions,
uh-huh.
do we have a system set up? Are we gonna have, like, I ask one question, Paul asks one question, you ask one question, and do it like that so that one person isn't asking several questions and then maybe that would be a question that someone else would have?
We can do that. That's
Is
fine.
that a good strategy?
Or you want me, or do you might as well agree right now. If you want me to read all my questions first and then move on to somebody else, or take turns asking their questions. Okay, you don't really care.
It doesn't matter. Maybe, do you have a preference?
Well,
Because
I mean, if you wanna ask all the questions and start it, that's fine. How long are we going to, how many questions do we ask each?
Although I have like 5 or 6 questions, about 6 questions here, I'm probably just gonna ask 1 or 2. I'm not gonna ask all of them.
chances are is by the time, I think your process would work, except we may end up having the same questions or similar questions. So maybe the mayor goes first and asks all her questions.
They might be all the questions.
They might be all the questions that we would have asked.
There might be no additional questions, okay. Yes, okay, so,
And are we gonna have the applicant say something first, or is that?
we could, when we called the, in case you guys have prepared anything that you would like to say, maybe you haven't prepared anything. But when we called the Lieutenant Governor's office today, the ULCT attorney, to ask them a couple of questions that we had, they indicated that different places, every town has its own approach, and that one of them starts off by letting each candidate say something before we got to the interview portion. So I did not ask each of them to prepare anything, but if you guys have anything that you want to say before we get going, then you're free to. If you are perfectly fine to just get right onto the interviews, that's okay too. You want to get right to the interviews, Valerie? What about you, Cameron?
That's fine.
Okay, all right. So, no talking during the interview portion. There's very few of you in here, but we need to hear all the answers, so, no talking while this is going on. Okay, so I will start off, and my first question, I will ask, Cameron. Sure, yes. That way, everybody who is
Yeah,
online.
sit like one on that side over there, that way you have easy access to get up. You choose.
Okay. Thank you, Valerie. Okay. So I'm going to ask Cameron, what problems would you anticipate if the town began allowing multifamily housing in current single-family neighborhoods?
Okay, so, multifamily housing hasn't really been addressed in the town yet. The problems that I would foresee with it being in current neighborhoods would be, just the changing of the neighborhood itself. It would make the area a lot denser, it would change the demographics and the density of an area pretty quickly. So I would see those as problems.
You do or do not?
I do see those
Okay.
as problems. Those would definitely be obstacles that you would have to overcome. Road capacity, all those types of things would play into the higher density. Access for everyone, road size, some of our streets are pretty small, so those would be concerns to be looked at. If you're asking about a general view, my general view of multifamily housing, it would be that, as I have always pushed for, would be combining multifamily housing or high density housing, however you want to frame it. My belief is the best approach to doing that and adding that to the town would be by putting those within commercial developments. So that's what like a multi-use commercial development.
So like a new zone or just in the commercial zone?
So you could do either. I've proposed both throughout my time on planning, zoning, and working with the town, so I think you could do both.
Okay.
But I think when you do that, you eliminate a lot of the problems and concerns that people have with multifamily housing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Valerie, same question.
I think multifamily housing is a pretty broad description of what are we talking, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. I think it would change the neighborhood significantly. I think the neighbors, the residents of the neighborhood would be very upset about letting multi-housing in. I think Cameron's correct in talking about the streets and fire and police and those issues. And again, it's a difficult question to answer because there's a lot of other things that would go into, an ordinance to allow that to happen in the first place. So I'm not afraid to say I don't know. But I know who to ask and where to get information to try to make that happen, if that's what the town needs.
Okay, thank you. Okay. The last question, the second question, this will be my second question. I might come back later after the rest of you ask questions, see if I have a third. So this time I'm gonna start with Valerie. Will you support limiting the percentage of a piece of land that an owner can cover with impervious surfaces such as buildings, driveways, patios, etc., to reduce contamination of the river and flood risk to neighbors?
Absolutely, 100%.
Short and sweet. Cameron?
Okay, so we're talking about impervious surfaces.
Should I repeat the question?
No.
Okay, okay.
I got it. So, yes, I do think that there are ways and there are things the town should do to mitigate the flooding and contamination and all those aspects that come when we add impervious surfaces. The town should limit those to protect those things, right? The town should drain the neighborhoods, the town should protect the water system, so yes. I think not only should the town do that, but the town should also look into other construction methods and drainage methods that don't involve impervious surfaces. I was a big supporter, and I think the town should look at more for a lot of other developments, but when we had one subdivision come in, their proposed drainage was not curb and gutter, it was a boulder drainage leach type system instead of curb and gutter. And I think the town should also look at doing alternatives to curb and gutter, alternatives to impervious sidewalks and around town, as well as limiting impervious surfaces on property owners. So I think the town should do that and more to prevent floods.
Okay. Thank you. I will move on and let another person ask questions.
Okay, I'll ask the question. I'll flip a coin, who is go first, Valerie. Okay. Describe your vision for Virgin Town over the next 5 years.
Small, rural, with a business, with commercial businesses, on SR9. I guess a bedroom community, you would call it, for Zion National Park. I don't wanna see a lot of commercial. I don't wanna see a lot more, highway resorts, glamping, that kind of thing. Just a family community, that people can work and live and shop and thrive. Thank you.
Cameron?
Then we ask the same question, or you have to?
Yes, please.
Okay, so for the next 5 years, so 5 years isn't very long. But I think that Virgin should remain a family oriented and a family community, right? A small, just, just as Valerie said, right? So for the next 5 years, you're currently working on the general plan. So completing the general plan, is probably the priority of the town. I think that should include, and the town should work on ways to bring families back into the community. I think that, when we're looking at the commercial development, I do a moderate approach. I don't want to look like Springdale, but I don't want us to look like Rockville either. And so I think somewhere in between those two communities is a good place for Virgin to fit. I think that, supporting and finding ways to bring the cost of housing down, at least in some areas of town, so that, younger families can afford to move into the community is probably one of the high priorities I would put and stress towards the town in the next 5 years, making that a possibility.
Thank you. So I'll ask another question. I'll start with you, Cameron. The paving of Sheep Ridge Road will have an impact on Virgin County, in my opinion. What type of development would you like to see along that corridor?
So, Sheep's Bridge Road is mostly, so I'm trying to think what along Sheep's Bridge Road is there. So most of Sheep's Bridge Road is undevelopable because it is publicly owned. But there is some private there. I think that you, like that, the corner, I think is a great place for development. I don't know, and I wouldn't see development extending down to the river frontage. But I think that corner is a good place for development, and a place that you would see it would become a fairly major intersection, I think, right there. But I would not encourage or see any development or commercial activities along, what would that be? The west side of the road that's all housing, right? So that should remain as it is within that subdivision. And I want to say that housing also extends on the other side. Maybe it doesn't quite, but I think it almost extends clear from the other side if you come down that road. I can't remember what road it is by Kelly's, but I think that housing extends that way too. And yeah, I would foresee that housing staying there with the commercial just being up top at that corner, at that intersection. So, yeah,
You were saying that you were thinking that the road that is by where Bob Kelly lives, is that what you said?
yeah, that road.
That it would do what?
So I think that extends down there, and I think that housing almost touches Sheep's Bridge Road from that, right? The lots down there almost touch Sheep's Bridge Road.
Yeah, it abuts that, conservatory area that's right there down by the
Yeah.
church, so it goes right up to there.
That's what I was thinking, so. Sorry, I was confusing.
We weren't sure what the road was.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the name of the road is or the street number, but it's the one by Kelly's.
So what exactly was your question?
Okay, the paving of Sheep Ridge Road will have an impact on Virgin Town, in my opinion. What type of development would you like to see along this corridor?
In the whole corridor or just in the town of Virgin?
Just in the town of Virgin.
I'd like to see very little development, on that corridor. I have a feeling that down the road, there's gonna be development out beyond our borders that we are not going to have any control over. But we will feel the impact with traffic, et cetera. So I think, leaving Chief Bridge alone, with the exception of the parcels on SR9 that are already underway or already zoned commercial, that's inevitable that that's gonna be commercial, but in the corridor itself, I don't really wanna see any development. Thank you.
All right, I don't have any questions written down, but let me start off with. I have two questions for each candidate. One will be the same and the other will be individualized. Start off with Val.
That's a terrible green you have on it.
And the individual question first, and then I'll go general. The individual question is in your application to the town council, you indicated that you support the mayor, in what she has done, in the recent years as mayor. What would you say to citizens that say that, they want somebody on town council that will make their own decision and not just rubber stamp what the mayor wants?
When I ran for town council, I voted for the mayor in her election, and I support the mayor. Doesn't mean I always agree with the mayor, I don't. So, does that answer your question?
I don't have a particular.
Okay, no,
Response.
right,
I'm just curious what you would say to
I support all of
complaints
you.
or people saying that.
Right, well, I support all of you, again, doesn't mean I agree with you 100% of the time.
Might as well stay up there so we get a little. The other question is, you will be replacing Marcy Home on the town council. So therefore, we have a certain part of the citizen or electorate decide that they wanted Marcy Home in there. So how would you say your platform, your policies and beliefs are similar, and how are they different than Marcy's?
I think we have a lot, Marcy and I have a lot, we discussed this quite a bit, about, keeping development in check in town. I also just want to say that, the last election shows me that people were looking for a change, from the former administration. And I'm change, I be change.
Okay, great. Cameron. Let's, since you're the general question, go ahead and answer that. How would your platform, philosophy and beliefs be similar to Marcy, or how are they different or both?
Okay, so we'll start out with similar. So, watching Marcy, in the meetings and how she votes, I see that Marcy is very concerned about finances. She's very fiscally, conservative, in her platform. So I'd be very similar to her, fiscally, in that conservative manner, being careful with the public dollar. As she was. Now, if you ask me how I'm different from Marcy, I would say that I'm probably, from Marcy, I'm probably a little bit more pro, growth. I'm a little bit more open to commercial development than she was. And so I think that would be the difference between Marcy and I.
And now the individual question, I assume you're still working for White Bison? And so how would you respond to citizens that consider that a conflict of interest? You being on the town council and working for White Bison?
So that, obviously that's a conflict of interest because I have an employer here. And I would recuse myself from any voting that would affect the company that I work for. I wouldn't participate in the discussions, I wouldn't vote on any items that would affect the company that I work for. Now, I don't think that because I work within the town, that makes me less independent minded than anyone else. So me having a job within the town and working within the town, that just makes me more connected to the town. That makes my connection to the town stronger than someone that just lives here, because I have more connections in different ways.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you done?
I am.
Okay. So I have two questions and I actually wanted, I'm kind of formulating another one in my head.
Okay.
But I'm gonna ask my first two and then we'll see how it goes. And these are. If we just answered the last question, I'll start with Val. Val, sorry.
Either one, it's fine.
Whichever you prefer. So when we come to these meetings, we all do our research on the agenda. And it usually gives us an idea of, you know, usually when you go, you guys do it like you run planning and zoning. Kind of get your knowledge behind you, so you kind of know where you're going with it. But in some cases, our town council, we allow public comment as well, like planning and zoning does. But if those comments you hear from the public are a valid point or an area you've not thought to look for, you're gonna have to make a decision in that moment. Are you willing to consider public comment and possibly change your opinion?
Absolutely, yes, definitely.
So,
Although having said that, I've seen many meetings that it's a very small minority of people that come in to comment. I wouldn't necessarily take that as a general feeling in the town, but if someone makes a point that I hadn't thought of or considered, I would absolutely take that into consideration.
You want me to answer now?
Yes.
Okay.
do you want me to read it again, or do you know?
No, I guess.
Okay.
Public comment. Yeah, so, right. Of course, all right, so in the trainings, they always talk about the difference between, public clamor and then, public, and then other public interests, and public concerns. And that's how I would treat public comment. So the purpose of a public comment system portion is because I can't think of everything, or we can't think of everything. And people have different perspectives and points of view, and they may see something that, that someone else has missed. And so I have always taken that into consideration during my time on planning and zoning. I have often amended, if you've watched those or been to those meetings, we've amended ordinances, we've added restrictions to conditional use permits, and we've changed things that I thought were pretty good because of public comment. So I think public comment's important for that reason. So yes, I will take it into consideration.
Okay, Valerie. You'll come up. This seems like an interesting question, but I have a reason for asking. Do you see town council as mediators?
That's an interesting question. Well, I see town council as mediators.
If you need, I can give a little more explanation if you.
That would be great.
So do you see town council as mediators in, well, we have to write ordinances that please not only state, town residents, the town itself, and the ones that are property rights, ones that are not property rights, or developers, you know what I mean? It's just
Mhm.
somebody that finds the middle ground. Do you see that? And
I definitely see that as a portion of what town council does.
Right. So you see it as a portion, but like, explain a little bit, if you, I think maybe,
Well, I think mediation is in any decision-making board.
right,
There has to be give and take, and everybody comes from a different background, everybody has different expertise. And the idea is to get to a decision, a consensus, so yeah.
Thank you. Ellen?
So I had longer to think about this question than Valerie did, but I don't think it.
It's gotta be hard.
Here's what I would say, what I see town council or elected official as they're representative. So you are a representative of the town, not just a representative of the constituents who voted for you. So I would see town council, seated town council or town council person, or the mayor or any other elected position as a representative. And being a representative of the community of the town would require moderation. Right, so, and it would require, it would require changing, it does require you from going from like a campaign, and this is what I want, and getting people to vote for you to a representative of the entire community, which requires moderation, which requires change. So I guess you could call that a mediator, but I would see it more as a representative of the entire town, not just those who voted for it.
My next question, I formulated it, so I'm just gonna let it go.
Okay, I had a couple of other questions that I had come up with earlier this morning. And I just realized while you were asking your questions, I was like, oh, I forgot about these, I've written them all down, forgot all about them. So, this can actually, this question can actually, both Valerie and Cameron can address. In your previous time on planning commission, you addressed many land use issues. And the town has seen a lot of change. Over that period of time, are there any issues where you have changed your mind or rethought your previous position? I'll Cameron start.
So you're requiring me to think back more than a year, which is. That's hard, yeah.
Basically, I want to see if you're open-minded and willing.
Yeah,
And
so-
so do you see that things have happened?
So,
Maybe
so,
change your mind?
yeah, change in position, I think that, so a change in position, this is probably a good one. I helped write the, when short-term rentals were not a big deal, I helped write and brought before the public the short-term rental ordinance that was or is, or can't remember if it was all discontinued or how it is now, but that short-term rental ordinance, I helped with that. And I think there was a lot of flaws in that process of, and what we did there. So I think that, though at the time I felt that it was a good document, a good ordinance, I think there was some pretty substantial, mistakes made with that. I think that we should have been far more restrictive. I think we didn't foresee how big that market would become. And so, yeah, if I was rewriting it today with the knowledge I have today, there would have been a lot of changes to that. Location would be changed, density would be changed. There would be substantial changes to that document. So I think that would be a good one.
Okay, thank you. And Valerie, even though you've only been on planning commission for a few months, you've also been on planning commission
Correct.
before.
Correct.
And I believe you've been on planning commission or some sort of planning organization even before that.
And, yeah, it was a visioning committee.
Oh, okay.
It was kind of an arm of the town council. So I can't think of any time I changed my position as far as the vote goes, but leading up to that, I have taken into consideration public comment and comment from other board members to add, subtract, clarify sections of the ordinance.
Okay. See.
Interlude music.
What's that?
Interlude music.
Okay, last question for me. In the previous administration, the town council was pretty much a single voting block, and this upset some residents. In my opinion, a fair town council is one whose representation is a snapshot of the town, pretty much like what I tried to do with the planning commission to make it representative of the town. What perspective do you feel you can bring to the town that you believe is not being fairly represented on the council at this time? Whoever wants to go first.
Wow. That's an excellent question. You guys have a lot more experience than I do. I know that you have different areas of expertise. I feel like, I lived in Virgin longer than a lot of people, not as long as some other people. I listen to people, residents, and their concerns. I think I'm pretty level-headed, I'm open to new ideas. And I think I would be an asset to the council.
So, can you just repeat the question again?
I just turned my.
Sorry.
Off, I just turned it off.
I know it's about representation and you don't need to turn back on, I'll just.
It was, what do you feel? Do you feel that there
That I
is
bring
a
different-
viewpoint that's not being represented on the council?
Okay, so
I think that's what it said, yeah.
a viewpoint that is not being okay,
I
Yeah,
was
so
trying, my whole point was, I don't want a town council that is just a single voting block, because people have accused me in the past of wanting a town council that rubber stamps whatever I want to do, and that is not true.
yeah.
And
Okay.
so I like to see different viewpoints on the town council, so what viewpoint do you feel is not on the council that you could represent?
So, yeah, we're talking about representation here, and if we're talking about that and a viewpoint that is different, I think that the first and foremost, and maybe it reflects in all the things that I talk about, but I think that you're missing the viewpoint of a young father with young children on the council. And I really hesitate to say that because this might kill me. My 20-year-old Missy, please don't beat me. But I think that's a small segment of our population here in Virgin now. But there is still families that live in Virgin. And they one just moved in not long ago to Desert Gardens. So, we do have that, and I think someone representing young families and the needs of families is missing on the town.
So did anything else, that was my role, we were obviously in our.
Some of the questions I had were asked that I was thinking about, perspective and knowledge that could be important to the town council. And that she brought up clearly.
Okay. If there's, no more questions of our two applicants, do you all feel ready to proceed with the vote?
How are we gonna do that? Just a vote?
Crystal put, these, prepare little ballots, they're, a paper clip to your, inside of your folder there. And we can mark who we vote for, and then she will, we can read them, or she will collect them and read them and say who voted for who.
Yeah, so we have to put our name on it.
It's got her name on
Oh, does it? Oh, good, yeah,
it. Yeah,
because we have to announce who voted. for
yeah, so she's gonna read it out. So your vote will be clear. So that's what I'm asking, do you guys feel ready to go ahead for a vote?
Yeah,
Do
we
you
can.
guys, wanna discuss anything before we move on to a vote?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out whether we're gonna do it this way or we're just gonna vote. And so before I have any discussion on it. I just wanted to make sure I understand which procedure we're gonna adopt.
And she just said she's gonna have us mark.
So we're gonna do this
And
instead
then-
of just voting.
hand it to
And then Crystal will read it, right? What did
What the ULCT attorney said, first off, the attorney for the lieutenant governor's office said they have no input, that it's up to us. And then, the ULCT attorney recommended that we do one of two ways. We can either do this, which is the ballot with our name on it, and Crystal's gonna say who voted for who, or we just say the other is someone on the town council made a motion to appoint one of the candidates, and then they took a vote.
You want us to leave?
No.
So it's okay, so those were the two options that the
Yeah, and
ULCT
I-
attorney said he has seen.
Yeah, and I can think of a third option is we just vote and then we follow up with a, motion to appoint whoever.
There's that too, you and I discussed that.
So there's three options. I'm all right doing either of the three. The only thing I don't like about,
This,
no, this is all right, or see, or just taking a vote, that's all right. What I don't like about the other one is somebody's making a motion and then we're either voting that person down or out.
yes,
And that I prefer,
don't like.
I just soon do that after the vote.
So I'll tell,
The adoption.
I agree with that too.
okay, so I will tell everybody that what this is, so we have this, up here on the screen. And what was the new section that was added last year was this section D. And it says, I mean, this is
Section 2.
1D. This whole section D that talks about taking an initial vote. And it doesn't explain how this initial vote is supposed to be taken. And that's why it just says we take an initial vote. It's like, well, what does that mean? And that's why we have come up with three different ways that we can do a vote, because it does not lay out. Does someone make a motion? Do we vote them up or down? How does this work? And so that's why they said some places they have a little ballot, people mark their ballot. Others, somebody makes a motion to approve or to appoint or what, because it kind of leaves it open to us how to proceed. But I will go to section 2 here. And section 2 makes clear that if you look at 2A, and I want to make this so that people who are watching online and those who are in here understand that 2A1 says, if the vacancy occurs or a letter of recommendation or resignation is received by the municipal executive at least 14 days before the deadline for filing for election in an odd numbered year, and that would be next year in June in 2025, we would be taking, that's the deadline for filing for election. So this letter of resignation was received way more than 14 days before that. So number 1 has been met. And then number 2 says, 2 years of the vacated term will remain after the first Monday of January following the next municipal election. And that will also be the case because next year, a year from now, there will be another municipal election. And in January, there's still 2 more years to go on Marcy's term. So both 1 and 2 have been met. So if we meet 1 or 2, then what happens is, this is an interim appointment, as A says. It will be an interim appointment followed by an election to fill a 2-year term. So what this means is whoever we appoint tonight, Cameron or Valerie, will serve 1 year, and then if they know that they want to run again, they put their name in this coming June to run for a 2-year term, which then fills out the rest of Marcy's term. And then we're back onto the right track with 3 people and 2 people every 2 years, and that's how this works.
Or they could put them in and run for 4 years.
Well, there's that too, but somebody somewhere is going to put a name in for a 2-year term.
Yeah.
Okay. So, which means that next municipal election, a year from now, there are going to be 4 seats that are going to be voted on. Mayor, 2 4-year terms, and 1 2-year term. And so I just wanted everybody to understand, anybody who's watching online does not make it clear that whoever gets appointed tonight does not get appointed to fill 3 years, they get appointed to fill 1 year. So. Because there's been some people have not understood that, so I wanted to make that clear. All right, so how do we wanna go? What do you guys want to do? We did not have
I
a
think
meeting
we
that
should
had
fill
time
out
to
this
decide.
and have it read so that there's no pressure on anybody or any council to vote one way or another as it goes down the line.
Okay, that was kind of my thought, that's why I was kind of afraid of this is if you hear a name and then another name, it can feel the pressure to vote a way that maybe you were not planning to vote. So,
It makes it more independent.
yes, more independent, no pressure.
This is not a unique decision.
Oh, yes, in fact, I wanted to say that earlier, I forgot to say that whenever the meeting started. That this really is a very difficult decision because both candidates are good. They both have experience, we like both people, this is hard, this is very hard. And especially just imagine, because we're all filling out ballots right now for president and governor and everything else. Imagine if we all had to sit here and read out our ballot of who we voted, we would not like it. Yet here we are having to have our vote for the whole town. So it's difficult.
I'll make my comments as soon as we all submit
Okay.
our things, so I don't
Influence.
prejudice anybody one way or another.
Okay.
Are we justifying our reason or just marking?
I'm actually writing something on my ballot, but you don't have to. And nobody has, Crystal doesn't even have to read my comment that I'm writing on the ballot, but I'll probably make it, I might even say it during the discussion.
thought you were gonna come collect these.
Oh, everybody done? I didn't think everybody was done.
Oh, I'm probably the only one still, I mean, this, but
I'm there.
I didn't even see that you had made your,
I made my selection as soon as everybody's done, and
okay, sorry.
before they're announced, I'll.
I thought you guys were still sitting there thinking, I was like, wow, you guys are struggling.
I'm gonna ask why I voted the way I voted, but I'm gonna do that after everybody votes.
Okay. Crystal, come pick up her. We hold that. You guys want to make comments for your own reading?
I thought they call them first because then I'll let you know.
Okay.
And if I do so, they'll know what, how I voted. But yeah, the mayor is correct. This is a very difficult decision. We have two very good candidates and I expect the candidate that's not selected, I have no idea how this is gonna be turned out, so I'm waiting on that to my seat. We'll be running next June, whether it's a four-person seat or two-person seat. The basis for my selection is, this is to fill Marcy Holmes' seat. So there was a certain electorate that wanted a certain person in for certain reasons, and I think Valerie, you were correct, they want to change. And I think that's been the signal from the electorate, change in respect to land use. And that's, I think, what it's been the last 4 years, so I think Valerie fits closest to what Marcy's positions were. Cameron, you have great responses, very good thought out, very good responses. Your comment on what people would think of your conflict of interest was not only correct, but I think was a very good response, better than I could have even thought of. So that was good. You're right, Marcy, also was fiscally conservative, but I think the electorate was more concerned about some of the land use and want to change. So I wanted to vote somebody that would represent the constituents that voted to her, in my opinion. I know it's only in my opinion. And next year, the electorate can prove me wrong in the decision, but I feel that I wanted to honor Marcy's, the people that voted for it. So obviously I voted for Valerie.
Anybody want to say anything else?
I'll just say something, because I know that you can sit here and look at us and look at our politics and everybody makes the decision of who we would have picked and why. But, this was hard for me, because I've seen Valerie in action and I've seen Cameron in action and I've seen their words match their actions. So I see a lot of integrity in Tubi and I love it. And, it honestly took tonight's questions that I asked you and one that was brought up by one that I can't remember who asked it, but that changed it to, I voted for Cameron, and it was the family-based answers. And even though he called me old, which Valerie did not, even though he called me old, it was that honest, the family-based answer was it, because I'm family-based. And I feel like our community is missing a little bit of that. So.
Okay.
You want to cover it?
Well, I just like to say, I also voted for Valerie because I've been working as a private citizen until I was elected. And I'd seen that, family values might seem to be on the top of the list, but the way the town has developed over the 4 years before I was in office, I think is kind of a rejection of family values. And so I think that along with Paul, that people voted for Marcy because of her decision based on land use and neighborhoods and things like that. And so that's where I think Valerie's closer those types of, priorities that really are things that keep families together in town more than the developers that have come in and kind of made it more difficult for families to actually live here and buy homes here and exist here. So that's why I voted for Belleville.
Okay, so of course it comes down to me.
Just wait until the last.
I waited until the last, I almost said something, but April started talking first, so I'll let her go first. I felt that, I agree with Paul, that Cameron's answers were you had excellent, well thought out answers to the questions that you were asked. And I wrote this down on my ballot, that I felt that your answers actually, the way you were talking about, we need to consider this, we need to consider this, we need to consider this. Actually worked better on planning commission than town council. And, because some of the things that you said that you would consider, I felt like, well, these are things that need to be addressed. I'm looking at some of your answers here that I wrote down. And I felt these are things that actually work better being addressed in planning commission when you're working on ordinances than when it comes to town council, and town council then votes on the ordinance that has come from planning commission. So I even wrote down on my ballot that I felt your answers were better suited to planning commission. Maybe that's because you have so many years on planning commission that you think that way. But I went ahead and voted for Valerie. So you don't necessarily need to, read the ballots now, because we've all said our answers, and,
Do we want a motion to appoint?
yes,
I'll make a motion to, Valerie to the vacancy created by Morrison.
I'll second it.
okay, all right, I was thinking more of a vote that would, as opposed to appoint a vote that ratifies, a motion to ratify the vote.
I will accept that change.
Okay, that
That's
comes
a better
across
way of
better as a
phrasing it.
motion
Thank
to
you.
ratify the vote
Yeah.
that we have.
I'm all right with
Yeah,
that.
because I was going to say,
You would vote
I
no.
would vote, no, I was going to say my vote was yes, because I think that what we were meaning to do was.
Yeah, but
ratify.
to ratify it, no, that was a
Yes.
better process, yeah.
Okay. All right,
And I assume the second's all right with that.
Yeah.
yes, okay, so I guess we better do a roll call vote.
Yeah.
Misty,
Yes,
Jean, yes, Paul,
Yes,
and April.
Yes.
Okay,
and I don't get another man on the council, but that's it.
dang it. I was thinking about that. Could it be nice to have another man on the council, another male perspective? But,
another person.
but besides thinking, let me say one more thing before, they do this swearing in. That, oh, yes, that my vote, besides the fact that I felt like your answers your way of thinking would work better on planning commission. My other thought was, that yes, I spent more time thinking about what was it that was the intent of the voters, a year ago. And so that was the same thing that Paul, same, perspective that Paul had, which was what was the intent of the voters last year to try to maintain that intent. So there we go. All right, Crystal. Maybe she's saying, stay on or let her kind of slow down.
One other thing to say, you know, they're gonna come back and check.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, just moving out, so she found herself.
Valerie,
So that everybody can see.
Okay. I know, you told me.
Go ahead and raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Valerie Lenz,
I, Valerie Lynn,
have been appointed to the office of town council.
have been appointed to the office of
I do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of this state
that I will support and defend the Constitution of this state
and the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will discharge the duties of this office with fidelity.
and I will discharge the duties of this office with fidelity. And so.
Okay, pictures if you want.
Yeah, okay.
Show the camera.
I was gonna say, show the camera. Even owl, it shows everybody your, okay. Cameron and I were just sitting here saying that you had to back in the camera the whole time. We did not turn sideways so people could see. Okay, back to the.
All right, Valerie.
Are you gonna go to the?
Oh, yes, okay, but this,
We can share this.
yes, this is gonna be a real quick. Okay, let's adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second. All in favor?
Point of order, I think we should do a roll call vote. So we
We're
got-
just not, hold on, guys.
So we have roll call vote with, Valerie's first.
Okay,
Official
first official vote, okay. So we had a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. April.
I.
Paul.
Aye.
Jean. Aye. Misty. Valerie.
Yes.
We need to adjourn.
Camera.